Welcome to Death Row.
Like we always do about this time.
I'm gonna fight your fucking ass!
You don't got, you're playing touch butt with that dork in the park.
There's a little snake in the grass.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
No fucking Jesus, people!
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody!
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I'm back.
Who the fuck is that guy? Break out the red panties. We're rich, baby.
I would like to introduce...
Welcome to the MMAforMoney Show, episode 42. In this show, we will review UFC on ESPN 11, Blades vs. Volkov, and preview UFC on ESPN 12, Poirier vs. Hooker. I am Bob Voss, your favorite guardsman at MMA State of Mind, here with Mike Copenhaver. You can find him at Don't Cope Just Win on Twitter. Also, please follow the show on Twitter at MMAforMoney Show. Mike, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing absolutely amazing, man, especially after the great weekend we had for the MMA4Money team. I told and tweeted everybody out 1 hour before the race on Monday that to go get your packages from Prime. And not very, some people listened, some didn't, but you guys sure did regret it because he cashed another one. Not only did he cash on Monday's race, but he cashed on Saturday, and it was a plus 2,200 altogether for the weekend. We broke even, but it still was a great weekend for the MMA4Money team. So make sure you go to MMAforMoney.com and get yourself a package because Prime is the real deal.
Absolutely. Proven long-term winner. You can just scroll back and see how he just keeps to win and win and win and win. I don't think I've ever seen him not win a large sum of money over the course of a NASCAR season. And like Mike said, we ended up breaking even, but obviously breaking even is way better than losing you guys money. And if you just count primes, then we are way up on the weekend, but we're not just going to do that. We're going to get you guys more winners, more bets, all coming up here. But you know what? It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. The MMA4Money Show is here. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, a straight RSS feed. We are also on YouTube, but full-length shows as well as small tidbits to get your quick fix. Subscribe and never miss a show. Like and comment and share to spread the word, please. But we're going to jump right into Blades vs. Volkov. Not the fight, but the fight card. A lot of these are going to be quick discussions so we can get into the meat of this card and move on to the next one. But starting off with a little bit of controversy, more just people's uproar after the fact. Austin Hubbard was a plus 160 underdog and actually looked very much it in the early goings of the first and start of the second round against Max. Still can't pronounce the last name. Sorry, dude. I'll get there. Rated R, I believe the nickname is, minus 185. Hubbard got a TKO via retirement or towel throw-in or whichever way you want to put it. Max quit on the stool in between the second and third round after nearly an entire minute of Drysdale trying to convince him to go back out there, but from sheer exhaustion and I don't know what else, decided to quit on the stool. I don't have too much to take on this other than the fact that I was thinking about betting Hubbard at underdog just because he's more proven in the UFC, which the first round I would have regretted betting him and then ultimately been justified in betting him, but ended up not betting him. So I guess I got nothing to say on it whatsoever, but I will throw it to Mike because, Mike, I know you have some very strong feelings one way or the other on this very, very first fight of Blades versus Volkov.
I just want to apologize to all the American wrestlers out there who are true American wrestlers who don't quit and keep pushing through every single hardship and every single bad position they've ever been in. Max Roskopf does not deserve to be in the UFC. He is not UFC caliber. I don't want to hear any excuses from anybody for this and that, his back, his this, his that. I mean, you guys are fighters. You signed up to be a fighter. Bob signed up to be a trash man. I signed up to be a Union 44 carpenter. You see how that works? I didn't choose to go combat and get my face punched in for little dollars. I'm so absolutely disgusted with the performance that he showed the world and also disrespected Professor Drysdale with the most disgusting quit I've ever seen from any wrestler, anybody ever almost, man. It was just despicable. I'm at a loss for words for how disgusting it is, dude. And I'll get whatever hate for it or whatnot, but that truth's the truth. This guy's a quitter. He will quit again. This is a mental thing. He doesn't have the mental game. He can go get a sports psychologist. He can go to the train and run as many laps as he wants. He's never going to have it to be the man in this upper echelon of the sport. He's disgusting.
Obviously, a lot of emotions have gone on and debate on Twitter about multiple things in regards to this fight. I'm going to take a little bit of a step back. Obviously, I have never fought, and I have barely trained in many forms of martial arts, very minimally in a select few, so I can't say much in that regard. All I do have to say is I understand he was exhausted, totally don't understand what that's like in the stool at that point, but with how dominant he was in the first round, clear first round for him, in my opinion. Obviously, he had success in the early goings of the second, and then Hubbard really stepped it up. So, in all seriousness, it was 1-1. If he was just head to the grindstone, wanted to just take Hubbard down and just lay and pray for a round, he wins his UFC debut, in my opinion. And the difference in wrestling ability was that staggering in the early goings that I think even Tired could have been able to get him down. But at some point, you can't push your guy out there to that degree. Like, either you have that portion of it in you or you don't. I do think it's rough for him because he's gotten harassed so much that I believe he deleted his Twitter and has kind of just gone into the ether. So
well, that just proves my point of being mentally weak. He can't even face that music. Everyone, you can lose, you come back and be a champion after that. But this guy doesn't have it. He isn't it. This is another one of those drop me an alley. After seeing this performance, I would never ever bet Max Roscoff in my life. I'm disgusted that I even fake picked him just because he was in a USA wrestler, because that's how much I love wrestling and jiu-jitsu. He's disgusting.
But the pick had legs early goings. I was actually surprised how easily he went down. Honestly, I think his biggest issue in the fight, obviously he quit on the stool, but the biggest issue for him was he went for so broke for like transitions into certain submissions in the first round that would just do nothing but burn energy. If he would have just tapered back just a little bit, he was so much better on the ground and with the wrestling. It's like he could have clearly won that fight and kind of had an early easy going of it. He just decided to go to that next level to go for the finish and burnt himself out. You can tell even, I think it was the last 30 seconds of the first round where they ended up on the feet. He was breathing heavily and started getting hit with some shots and tried to shake him off, but they just started piling on. It was getting rough after that. And then, getting full blown shot. Even in the early going, like the first half of the second round, you're like, okay, he's still good. He's tired. He's probably gassed, but he's good. It's so infrequent that it happens. You were just kind of shocked at how like dismayed he was in between the second and the third.
And half of you need to calm down right now, because remember, I'm here to entertain, and it's the point is that he disgusted me as a wrestler. It's disgusting to watch what I've seen last weekend compared to all the badass wrestlers that are in the United States of America, and also other fighters that deserve to be in the UFC on short notice that didn't get the call. So obviously, I understand he's a fighter. He deserves respect. My brother was a fighter. He didn't get any respect. So I don't know what you want now. It's like you get respect when you want it. You give it when you don't. It is what it is, dude. The fact is, he's a quitter. He's disgusts me.
Next up is a fight that I'm currently playing. I'm just reading the result because we weren't too gung-ho on it anyway. I think we picked on opposite sides, but this was not really a fight we cared about too much. It was Roxanne Modafferi, slight favorite against Lauren Murphy, and Lauren Murphy got the unanimous decision win.
Yay! I finally won.
Yeah, you finally picked the Lauren Murphy fight right.
Yeah, even though, this is coming from someone who despises it, and I still had the clarity of mind to edge it, but it was a close one. If Roxanne had a little bit more striking game, it would have been hers for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Or at least just a little bit of power behind the shots. Like you'll notice that in like a couple fights we're going to talk about later, where you just have guys that they can land, but if they don't have the all-around game to go with it, it's like if they don't have the power to go with it, it's if you're not making your opponent back up by hitting them with some serious power, it's like they're just going to keep coming after you. Next up, we had a bet, but then it didn't happen because there was a canceled fight and ended up getting waylaid. Frank Camacho originally was a slight underdog against Matt Frivola. We liked Frank Camacho, but you know what? Matt Favola bounced out. They had a last minute replacement, and they even talked about it beforehand in the broadcast that his plan was to go for broke in the first minute. And he did, and he ended up knocking out Frank Camacho. So kudos to Justin James.
Jesus Christ.
Dude, the very first, if you rewatch it, like the very first strike he throws lands super clean. And he's off balance ever since that point. And then there's 2 more shots ending with the hook before he kind of faded back towards the fence and then never actually fell all the way down, but the ref ended up calling it, and he was clearly out of it. But I mean, so I still think Camacho, with the game plan and how Favola fights, would have had that fight. But at some point, it's MMA. You bum rush a guy and you land clean twice, and he's on Queer Street. It's like you win the fight. So kudos to Justin James. I would need to see him actually with a full training camp and see how he actually fights rather than just a bum rush finish. He didn't really get much out of this one. So, Mike, got anything in this one, or we will move on?
Oh, I got a lot on this one. I mean, Jay James, dude, son of a bitch, dude. You took my boy from Guam and you straight murked his ass. Like, I cannot believe what I saw, but I could. But I just didn't want to believe it. And it was absolutely amazing, dude. I mean, even my boy Frank Camacho was just like, what in the fuck is this dude coming at me so fucking aggressive for so fast? This was not what I wanted to do. I was trying to not be aggressive because I've been so aggressive, and now that's backfiring against me because my game plan was to calm down and maybe, go a few rounds before I get a little too crazy and blow my gas. Now this backfired on him completely. He fucking just gets smoked, absolutely murked. It was unreal. I believe it was a left hook and a left hook immediately that dropped him initially. Somehow Frank Camacho had the balls to get back up and also take a little bit more pounding. The stoppage was perfect. It was absolutely amazing by the ref. But Jay James is a son of a bitch, dude. That guy, and I don't mean any disrespect, Jay James, so don't be coming at me with your fans all hooting and hollering about me calling you son of a bitch. Your mom's probably a great woman.
Positive. It's a positive.
I'm just saying, you fucked my boy up, dude. You straight murked him. Like, I think he should retire. Sad to say. I love you, Frank.
Well, you can't expect someone in their UFC debut to just sprint across the cage to like a staunch veteran who's had numerous UFC MMA fights, and the dude just came straight at him. Like, you could just tell on Frank's face he was not ready for it.
Left hooks are son of bitches, dude. Like, they come out of nowhere, and not just one came. It was back to back. Like, you don't see someone throw back-to-back left hooks often. It was pretty impressive. Like I said, I don't have much more on him in the sense of we didn't see him roll, we didn't see him scramble much. So I'm curious to see him on a full camp. But Frank Camacho's no joke, dude. I mean, I mean no disrespect to him. Like I said, I back all my boys from Guam and on the island. I picked Frank Camacho to win his fight versus Favola. I definitely backed him on this fight. Period. I don't know if I would have laid that money line down on him, though. So either way, great fight by Jay James. I'm mad respect to Camacho, but I just enough punishment.
Next up, since this one ended up changing so much, the previous one, this was our first bet on the fight card, and yes, it was a loss. We knew Courtney Casey did not have amazing takedown defense, but we knew that she would likely be bigger, longer, and had a better chance in the long run, but she just was never able to get going. She did have a somewhat close armbar. I can't remember if it was in the second or the third, which would have turned it all around, but she was a plus 100 underdog against Jillian Robertson, minus 120. Robertson ended up getting a sub with 28 seconds left in the fight. I'm honestly very surprised that with that amount of time left, I mean, as far as I know, Casey maybe wasn't cognizant of how much time was left, but they've ride it out to a decision. I mean, she was still going to lose the decision, but I mean, it was 28 seconds. Yeah, obviously Courtney got pretty much destroyed from pillar to post. She should have been a much bigger underdog in this scenario, and she just looked bad. I knew she'd get, like I said, I knew she'd be taken down, but I just thought in the long run, the fight would be hers. And damn, was I wrong. Mike, what do you got for Casey versus Robertson and that rear naked choke at the end?
It was absolutely disgusting to watch this performance as well. This is another Max Rokoff type quitting situation. The tapping with 28 seconds to go, I guess Robertson did have a decent position. She had a weird position where she had her hooks. Like one hook, definitely it was like in, but it was pressed up on the upper thigh, pushing downward for pressure as she was choking upwards on the neck. But she quit mentally because she was whining and crying about the coach in the corner before she got up after the tap. She quit in there completely. She did have a better striking game than Robertson. She was piecing her up every time she did get a chance, but it was far and few, and it wasn't enough, and it was a pathetic performance by her. I'm disgusted that all the UFC experience that she has, that she didn't realize that she needs to go take wrestling serious. It's pathetic, and I'm sorry for the 1 unit loss there, but at least we got it back on the next one.
Next up, I'm just going to read the results on this one because even when we picked, we were kind of just pushing past this fight. Marc-Andre Baralt was a slight underdog, but he finished it with an uppercut.
Whoa. I did not just pick. I straight out said this was the in the alley theory, bro. This was one of them.
I thought your in the alley theory was for Emmett.
That was too. I think it was Burial. I don't think it was. I thought
it was Emmett and
it was Burial.
No, Torres was the vet. Was the OG.
It was Burial because I went on about Pachocchio, or whatever his name was, and I said that there's no way that dorky dude would in an alley that's the dude you're gonna pick. But Marc-Andre Burial, he got himself clipped a few times, scared the shit out of me, but he eventually ended up coming through and smashing that dude. But not much more to say.
The guy in the alley, it doesn't matter if he gets clipped a few times.
Oh no!
There's too much rage behind those eyes for the clips to stop him if it's the alley.
My point exactly. But either way, the alley theory has held an incredible percentage rate. So I'm going to start betting every single one of those where I feel like drop them in an alley, and that's going to be a bet.
Especially if they're an underdog, because that's just a gut feeling there. And as much as breakdowns are a thing and analysis is a thing, sometimes your gut is the thing you absolutely have to go with, no matter, like, sometimes there's just things that aren't telling you. Like, going back to way back when, I eventually chickened out and didn't actually make the bet, but the gut feeling that Roxanne Modafferi was going to be Macy Barber, didn't end up betting it. That was a plus 700.
I know.
So sometimes you can't let odds mess with a gut feeling when it's proven to be right in the past. Just like with Mike's in the alley theory, like, we were racking our brain. I actually have to go back and check, but I could think of, over the history of the show, I could think of maybe one time, at most two, where it didn't hold true. And there's at least one or two of those picks per fight card. And we're on episode 42 here. So that's a pretty high pick percentage.
And we're talking like some big calls where I said, like, Cody Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz. When I said, dude, I know Cruz personally. I'm telling you right now, he is not that guy. He's a great dude to whoever he wants to be a great dude to. He worked hard, especially, he's professional, but he ain't the guy that he wants to be in the alley versus fighting some dude.
Absolutely. Now the next fight was Tisha Torres, was a big underdog, plus 165. Not crazy, but pretty big, against Brianna Van Buren. People were pretty high on Brianna Van Buren. She was minus 190 because everyone thought she was so big she'd be able to pin Tisha Torres at the face. But she only did it for one round. And then Tisha Torres was too fast and too much of a veteran to, like, win those positional battles against the fence in the later goings, and clearly won the second and third and ended up with a unanimous decision win. So she snapped a losing streak, and she keeps her ranking, I suppose. So, Mike, this was one of your never discount the OGs bets, picks type scenarios. This wasn't an official bet, but for sure a pick. So, Mike, by all means, talk about how the tiny tornado whooped on some Van Buren there.
Oh, man. Tisha Torres, to me, looked better than I've ever seen her, ever, period. She looked mentally more confident. She was more aggressive. She was the tiny tornado for real for the first time that I've seen in 5 years or more. I was super impressed by her. I aren't very often impressed by someone so small, but her and Van Buren were getting at it in the first round. But once the experience factor kicked in that Tisha Torres had and her confidence, she just literally implied a great kick game, great distance, and she also just in the scrambles was amazing. So I was super impressed by her, and I couldn't believe the plus money that most people got on her, and that's why I just said it. There's no way that I could go with Van Buren at that number. I'd have to pick Tisha Torres every time, and that's what I said last week, and that's exactly what happened. And just wish that I threw the money down myself instead of being a little hoe.
Next up, Clay Guida was a plus 215 underdog against Bobby Green, minus 255. Green ended up with the decision win there, but honestly, it was much closer than I think a lot of people picking Green thought it would be. Guida kind of dominated the wrestling and won the first round, in my opinion, and there were several exchanges that if certain takedowns lasted longer, or a few, the harder part was Green was landing the bigger shots and some big knees over the course of the second and third round. So he eventually got the decision, but it was pretty close. And knowing Green's track record, it could very well have been a split decision loss, and the one on his record, just the way judges are. But he gets the win. And honestly, I watched the fights after the fact in individual form. So if you watch this live, Mike, you can give a better gist of it. I heard he gave a big post-fight speech that was fairly moving and good. I did not see it. I just strictly watched the fights after the fact. So if you know that, by all means, break into it or just talk about the fight.
You're talking about the post-fight interview with Bobby Green and his cornerman that was a white man, right? Yeah, I didn't see every single wording of it, but it's basically just about what everybody should be speaking about, is that between your white, Asian, black, Hispanic, I don't look at that, man. Most people shouldn't. That's something is kind of taught. There's definitely racism going on in the world all over, and definitely my African American friends, they definitely have it a little bit harder in the certain places that the demographically are mostly black. When I worked in Inglewood and Compton, a bunch of wonderful families, awesome community, but remember there's not a lot for them that's offered for them to keep pushing on and advancing, which I totally agree with them and see what they're saying. The cops profile them. They definitely do. It happens all the time. It's scary. It's scary enough when someone pulls up behind me on the freeway or in the streets. It's a cop, and he's just looking for me to do one wrong move to get me to go to do something wrong so he can get me a ticket. And this is coming from an LAPD officer's son. So I definitely see there's a lot of great police officers and firemen, but there's a lot of great police officers who know there's bad eggs around and they still protect the crew. So I just mostly he was preaching love, and love is most powerful. I love all my friends, all races. I don't look at none of that. I feed them all, and I think that's the approach that most people should have. But everyone's feelings are valid, so I don't ever like to discount anyone lashing out or whatever it may be. I just I don't like our cities getting hurt and our shop owners and stuff like that. But protesting and doing whatever you need to do is fine, but preach love and not hate.
Yeah, we'll have a little perspective on the riots and stuff like that on a fight later on in the card that I completely forgot. I knew the news, but completely forgot about till in broadcast. But before we get to that point, Roosevelt Roberts, touted prospect, minus 225 favorite over veteran Jim Miller, plus 185. Jim Miller gets that first round armbar with a slick transition, and it is beautiful. I love myself some Jim Miller. I had no bet on this fight, but I remember saying I wanted Jim Miller to win. I'm so happy that he won. Man, I love you some Jim Miller. I'm happy with him fighting like once, twice a year against a guy with no experience or little experience and just getting that slick sub. I love it.
It was incredible, bro. And I got my knee pads out and I dropped down and I was stroking Robert's little jock strap a little bit too much, last week. But I did say I wanted Miller to win as a fan. He's a great person, and that I wish that he would. I really thought that Roberts had some talent and could do something, but dude, like we always say, you don't count those OGs out, bro. They've learned some things and situations and positions that you just haven't learned yet. And Jim Miller taught the kid a lesson real fast, and that broke some parlays like nobody's business.
Oh yeah, tons of people had Roosevelt Roberts in parlays that I saw. I would never do it because I'm always worried about prospects that are untested. That's bit me before in the past, missing out on some good paydays of going for the prospect that was ready, but I guess here ended up working out. I do still think that he has quite a future ahead of him. He's still super young in the sport. He just got to shorten up a little bit of his submission game, especially the defense, because his striking and his reach is still great. It's just that Jim Miller got inside of it so fast that he wasn't able to establish his range. But moving on, like we had said, someone has dealt with a little bit of the riding and the issues. Lyman Good was a plus 100 underdog against our second bet of this fight card. Bilal Muhammad was minus 120. We had him to win 1 unit. He win the unanimous decision victory, but they said in the broadcast, and I forgot about this news that came out, that during the rioting in Chicago, Bilal Muhammad's dad's shop that he has in the downtown that they've had for, I want to say, they said 30 years. I might be off in the time frame there. I apologize, but got completely gutted and destroyed in the riots that are downtown. Sorry, Chicago. Sorry, I live in the suburbs, so when I say downtown, I mean Chicago. Sorry. I saw he posted pictures, and man, it just looked awful. And the fact that he had all that going on, and he still came and performed amazingly. He clearly won the first 2 rounds. Third one was a little bit hit or miss because Good was able to land some serious shots and put him going backwards. What Bilal Muhammad had going in the first 2 rounds is he was doing great at circling away and taking away some of the power of Good and landing more shots, whereas Good was able to land in the 3rd round and make Muhammad back up a little bit and kind of took him out of his element, but he had hit that key takedown, the tail end of the 3rd round, to protect his consciousness, basically. He was a little bit on Queer Street there towards the end, but got the unanimous decision win and cashed that bet for us with just the 2 bets. The 1 and 1 canceled each other out, so we ended up just straight even, but hey, again, way better than losing money. Mike, what were your thoughts on this fight? How good looked, but it's bothering me the way that's said. So how well Good looked. I'm just going to go with Muhammad. Screw it. How did Muhammad look?
Well, man, I'm super impressed with Bilal. Remember the name Muhammad. He spoke super highly of him just for his dedication that he pushes so hard for his religion and Ramadan and doesn't eat and doesn't partake in certain food that most other people would, especially during a fight camp. That's the heart we bet on. That's exactly why we picked him in this fight, was that because we knew that we could trust all 3 rounds. Bilal Muhammad was going to be there and give us a great performance. But Lyman Good looked a lot better than I initially thought, and I also was pretty impressed with him as well. And it was a great performance. It was another fight where I would have been okay with the draw. I wanted the win for the team, and I wanted the win to split 1-1 to go with a 0 unit loss or win. So, I mean, I'm glad we got the win. I edged it slightly for Bilal, but I wouldn't have been mad at a draw, and I just really wish that they would hand out more draws on the scorecard. But I just love Bilal Muhammad, especially for taking that loss, I believe, to Jeff Neal, and then he goes down there and trains with him right after and requests him specifically to show him what he lost or what he beat him with. So people like that are just winners in my eyes, whether he wins or loses in life now. He's just always going to be a winner if he keeps that type of attitude and determination. And Lyman Good, too, definitely a higher ceiling now.
I think the biggest issue with Lyman Good, at least for me, is that he's already 35. Like, I know he was I think he was the first or one of the first welterweight champions in Bellator way back when. I wish he would have been in the UFC developing then, and I think he might be at a little higher place now, just given level of competition in the early goings of Bellator versus now. But so he doesn't have too many years left at welterweight before either he has to maybe move up or just kind of peter off. But I mean, he seems to have a hell of a chin. He throws with tremendous power, and even late into the fight. I mean, he was gassing a little bit there towards the end of the 3rd. Otherwise, I think he would have been really be able to put it on and finish Muhammad when he was able to rock him. But I guess we'll see going forward. Next up, Raquel Pennington was a minus 150 favorite over Marion Renault, plus 130. Pennington won the decision. That's all I have to say about that. Mike, do you have anything about this fight before we move on to an amazing co-main event?
Nah, I was pretty much spot on with what we thought would happen. We thought Raquel Pennington would win a unanimous decision, and I believe that's what happened. She what I said about Marion Renault, sweet girl, great jiu-jitsu, but her takedowns are terrible, non-existent, and you saw that in this fight because there wasn't anything there takedown wise, wrestling wise, but it is what it is. She's a 43-plus-year-old woman, and she looks great. Did a great job. But Raquel Pennington looked a lot better than she has in a long time. But it was Marion Renault striking.
In the co-main event, Josh Emmett basically tears something in his knee in the first 10 seconds of the fight. It's rewatching it, it's crazy how early in the fight that happened. And he just kept pushing. He was landing so hard on Shane Burgos. So kudos to Shane Burgos for having a damn chin on him. I mean, he got hit so clean so many times, sent his head rocking back, and he just kept going with it. Emmett got the unanimous decision win. Man, Emmett just looked great. I was worried a little bit with the huge Reese disadvantage that he had. It was fairly substantial, and Burgos was landing a lot of head kicks, but I really thought at least Emmett could have put him down at least once and maybe put him out. He didn't quite put him out, but he landed multiple times super hard, like sending Shane Burgos back quite a few steps. And honestly, he just looked great. And considering he did all that stuff with the messed up knee in the early going, it's just super impressive. Mike, how'd you feel about Emmett's performance? And I guess where would you like to see him after this?
Oh, man. The TMNT. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is what we shouted out last week, and that's exactly what happened. It was absolutely incredible to see the power that Burgos could handle on his chin. There was over 5-6 shots from an overhand right that Emmett landed that would have slept everybody. I cannot believe that Burgos had that chin. I mean, we gave him props. I said I was worried about Burgos boxing. He was the better boxer and was a little bit more crisp in that department. But when it came to the all-around, overall, everything, Josh Emmett was absolutely amazing, especially after tearing something in the first round in the initial going. I mean, there's people that will quit after that and start limping, and it's just over. So this fight was amazing. It was definitely one of the fights of the year candidates for me, because I just enjoyed every single minute of it. It was seriously action packed. Kudos to both fighters. Stocks still both went up on both of them, and except for the media not moving up the rank of Josh Emmett, which is super disrespectful and absolutely just crazy. Burgos went down 4 spots. Emmett didn't move at all. I mean, that's insane, you know.
And Aldo went up 1 without fighting.
Yeah, so it's just convenient. But so I just loved this fight, and I couldn't say enough good things about Josh Emmett, and I'm just so stoked that I picked him last week in our dorky way.
Next up, we're going to... almost skipped the main event. How dare I? Curtis Blades, at the time we recorded, was a minus 390 favorite versus Alexander Volkov, plus 320. Blades gets the unanimous decision over 5 rounds. He did exactly what he promised he would do. I'm a little disappointed just because I thought in the 3rd, 4th, or even 5th round, with how much he would be on top of Volkov, that he would be able to get a finish at some point. And he was really doing the tail end of the 2nd and early goings of the 3rd, really laying down a lot of ground and pound that petered later as he got tired. But I thought that was going to keep going to a TKO later. Didn't quite happen. Got a little exhausted, but hey, completely nullified Volkov for the entire fight. So, and actually did pretty good on the feet when he was there. So he did what he's going to do and got 90 and 90 as opposed to just betting it all on wild haymakers and maybe losing it and only getting half that. So I don't have too much thoughts besides that. I still like his chances in the future to one day be UFC champion. I am a huge homer for Curtis Blades. Obviously, I've said that in past podcasts. He's a Chicago guy. Huge fan of him in that regard.
Chi-town.
Big fan of him in that regard. So I'm always a little biased, but it was a dominant win. Mike, anything specific for this main event, Blades versus Volkov?
I mean, it went pretty much how we thought it would go. Just we knew that Curtis Blades' wrestling is far superior. We didn't know if Volkov could stuff a takedown. We never seen him really stuff a takedown, and we found out real fast that he can't stuff a takedown. So Curtis Blades did exactly what he should have over a 5-round fight, especially if that's the way for you to win is to wrestle the guy, because that's your best attribute. And touche to him, and I just hope to see him in the future versus some stiffer competition, because Volkov is there, but he's not quite that upper echelon. So we'll see.
Jumping to our upcoming event, UFC on ESPN 12, Poirier versus Hooker. We're going to do some quick picks like we always do. We have 2 bets on this fight card, and we are going to skim over some other ones. Obviously, there's a couple really, really good fights on this fight card and some not so good fights on this fight card, but we'll at least touch on all of them. First off is Jordan Griffin. He is minus 105 versus Yosef Zalal, minus 115. Jordan Griffin at this point is famous for losing to some really good guys and sticking it out till decision. So I don't necessarily know how good he is in comparison to those people. Yosef looked great in his UFC debut, but it was against someone who does not have a lot of UFC experience, so I don't know where he is at either. I'm not utterly confident in either. I guess if I have to pick, I'll go Zalal. Mike, I know you have a little bit more in-depth on this one, so by all means, break down our first fight on Poirier versus Hooker.
Yeah, Yusuf Zalal. I really like this guy, man. I'm super impressed with his determination, the fact that he has shown a 3-round wars, that he can keep going and be caught in bad submissions, be taken down multiple times and almost mentally broken, but still have the grit to come back and to strike, and on some of his losses that were close to that he could have possibly won, but he learned a lot during those fights. So I really like Zalal in this fight. I think that he has just the better mixed martial arts game. Jordan Griffin's definitely tough. He's going to come to fight. This is going to be a very close fight in my personal opinion, but I think it will be a decision win for the Zalal. He just has a little bit more to offer. It's a little bit better mixed martial arts game, and just more marketable. So I think the Zalal is going to roll here by decision.
Next up, we have some former Invicta fighters, a former Invicta champion in Jin Yu Frey. She is plus 140. She was the atomweight champ against 20-year-old Kay Hansen, who is minus 160, but more consistent strawweight fighter. This is at strawweight in the UFC. I don't have too much on this in general. I've seen both of them fight in the past in Invicta, but given the fact this is a different weight class, Hansen's so young, Frey's 35 for a really, really light weight class of 105. And I don't know. I guess I'll go with the former Invicta champ, but this one I would not follow me on. Mike, break down Frey versus Hansen.
Yeah, Kay Hansen is a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu over 10th planet over here, and she's quite impressive on the ground, and I think that her stockier wrestling base and her determination, I think could give Frey some problems striking, because she likes to stay a little bit at length and use it with striking. So I think that she is going to have a little bit of a problem in the smaller cage, the octagon, and it's going to favor Hansen in the wrestling, and I think that she's going to grind a 3-round decision over Frey, and that's just my personal opinion.
Next, after that, we have Takashi Sato, minus 135 versus Ramiz Brahimaj. I'll get that right post-broadcast after hearing a few people say it. Sorry for utterly butchering that. I do like Takashi Sato. He does have. He recently lost to Belal Muhammad, but we really like Belal Muhammad and has a finish over Ben Saunders, and Ben Saunders isn't who Ben Saunders once was, but I like his striking ability. I think he's, I don't know, I just like him more in the spot, but that, given that said, I don't know a ton about Ramiz Brahimaj. Man, I'll get that right at some point. This will be his UFC debut. I haven't been watching a lot of LFA recently, so I haven't seen his more recent fights, but it kind of seems to me like he's kind of just getting brought in this scenario. He's currently 8-2, and obviously when you have some of these bigger gyms that the UFC becomes close with, like Fortis MMA, where he is training at, you can kind of get put in, especially during this pandemic when they need fighters. So I'm going to stay away from it, but I guess I'll pick Sato just from strictly based off UFC experience. Mike, where are you on Sato versus Brahimaj?
I feel the same exact way. I think Sato just has a little bit more experience, and he's just proven a little bit more to me than obviously the newcomer. So I would go with Sato to win.
After that, we had a fight that I was actually really excited about, but now it's not happening. Sean Woodson was a minus 245 favorite over his original opponent, Kyle Nelson, who's plus 205. Now it's Julian Erosa, which I would think they would have odds by this by now. Actually, I'll quick try to refresh one last time. I've been trying to refresh since I heard the news this morning, but they still don't have it on there. So we don't have odds for this one. I would only assume he's going to be an even bigger favorite over Julian Erosa. So obviously picking Woodson, I really like him here. He is a gigantic featherweight. He's 6'2" with a 79-inch reach and just all around good. And I've never been high on Erosa just about ever. So I would go Woodson here, probably whichever way he wants, and likely getting a finish. Mike, anything specific on Woodson versus now Erosa?
I mean, if I could get a little bit better odds, Sean Woodson, this is one of those drop me in the alley theories. Sean Woodson will beat the absolute effing shit out of Erosa in the streets. Erosa would never want to see him in an alley, don't want to see him in the middle of the street, don't want to see him in a park, don't want to see him in a beach. He would wreck him on his feet. Woodson is going to kill this kid. It's not going to be close. I mean, mark my words, Woodson is going to come in there and absolutely wreck this kid's body and just wreck his soul. Erosa is going to be erased after this.
Next up, we have a heavyweight fight against heavyweight Canadian super prospect. I'm kind of being facetious there. Tanner Boser has quite a bit of experience, and he is one of the few good Canadian UFC fighters right now. That's not being disparaging towards Canadian fighters. It's just there's not as many in the UFC as there once were. He has a lot of experience. The downside, though, is he does not have one-shot knockout power. He is very much more of a volume type, which at heavyweight gets tricky because the longer you're in the fight, the better chances you have of getting clipped. Felipe Lins, I don't want to say impressed them because I really haven't been. I mean, he should have beaten Andrei Arlovsky. I do think he should have beaten him. There was a terrible judges scorecard that he ended up losing that fight. He made his big name for himself in PFL, beating some halfway decent names in there, including a super juiced Alex Nicholson at heavyweight, who just did every over, under, around the counter supplement you could possibly ever get. I think I'm going to go with Boser here, but I no bet whatsoever. I do think that he could win in the later on in the fight, but if it ends in like the first round or so, it's going to be Lins. But I'm going to pick Boser here. Mike, what's your pick on this heavyweight fight?
Yeah, I'm with you on Boser here. I just think that he's just shown me just more, and that he is. He's just in his past on his record, he hasn't been finished, and Lins has a couple times, and our guy hasn't. So I think that Boser is the right pick here. I think that with him not being finished in the past, that he would be the best bet. So
next up, we have, I'm not going to say a big prospect, but someone that everyone's fairly high on, at least anyone that I have heard. Miranda Maverick is fighting. Let me go in order. I have this Mara Romero Barella, who's plus 250, and she has won us money in the past, but she's a big underdog here for right reasons, versus Miranda Maverick, who is minus 300. This is the biggest, well, I guess it's tied for biggest favorite on the fight card, unless the odds have changed since. But I'm gonna go with the big favorite here. The only thing that I am eyeing that I actually like is Miranda by decision. Let me double check that for you guys. I believe it's 156 or 154, 164. So it's gone up a little bit. I do think she's better than Barella. I do not think she's going to get the finish here. There is a chance, obviously, but obviously plus 164 is much better odds than the minus 300 you're going to get. This is one of the few female MMA fight overs in recent memory that's under minus 200. Actually, it's minus 160 for over 2.5 rounds. So if you think it's going to go that long, that might be the way to do it, since so many overs are now super juiced, because, I mean, they happen way more often than not. I believe one in the last 10 has gone in the under. Mike, anything specific? I know Barella has won you money in the past. Are you going to go with her as a big dog here, or are you going to go with the heavy favorite Maverick?
You know, I just personally don't know enough about Maverick for me to ever lay that negative 300 money line down on her. So it's dog or pass on this. And Maria Barella has more experience to me, so I would definitely favor throwing units on her, flicking something, as opposed to that negative 300 on a lady.
Next up, we have our first bet of the fight card. Luis Pena is minus 270 versus Kama Worthy, who's plus 225. One second, those odds might be just a bit off, but either way, plus 225. And I know what you're thinking. Man, they're going to lay that heavy juice on Luis Pena? No. We're going with the underdog here for Kama Worthy, who has some power to him. And then the fact that Luis Pena likes to give fights away, and he should never be this big of a favorite when, other than being the ghost of Matt Wyman, hasn't really done enough to earn this kind of favorite status. You may look in past fights of Kama Worthy, and he's getting downplayed a lot because he has been finished a handful of times. I think 3 or 4. But that was when he was cutting a tremendous amount of weight to make 145. Ever since he's gone up to lightweight, he has never been finished. So it could clearly just be one of those situations where he was so dehydrated from going down to 145 that his brain just couldn't handle the damage. That's happened to plenty of guys that when they move up, they seem to get like a second chin, as odd as a statement as that is. So he will bang. He has a lot of power there. And I don't think Luis Pena is very hittable for me. He has almost no striking defense as far as I can tell. This may bite us, but I'm sorry. I don't think Luis Pena should be this big of a favorite versus just about anybody until he proves himself. And I think Kama Worthy has a good shot of putting him out. So we have 1 unit on Kama Worthy at plus 225 for you guys at a big dog money. Mike, what is your opinion on Luis Pena versus Kama Worthy?
Yeah, in this situation, in this matchup, Kama Worthy has some dangerous power, especially close up in the pocket. He's aggressive, and I think it's just a detriment to Pena, who leaves his chin wide open. He doesn't like being pushed backwards. We saw that in the Frivola fight, and I think the Kama Worthy is just that type of a person, and more agile than Matt Frivola. I feel like in the striking department, it's just going to be clear as day. And so I just can't wait to watch this fight go down because I think the odds are just way too far out of whack. And we're going to be putting down that 1 unit to win that plus 225. And let's roll.
Next up, Maurice Green, who recently was submitted by Alexei Olenek, is fighting John Vellante, who's plus 195, a.k.a. Chris Weidman's beta male, a.k.a. what should be a light heavyweight, fighting at heavyweight because he's too lazy to make light heavyweight, who everyone thinks is a wrestler because he's friends with Chris Weidman, but he was never actually a wrestler. He was a kickboxer and football player. Sorry, that's a lot on John Vellante. Sorry, he's lost me a lot of money in the past because he has clear openings for wins, and he likes to just brawl. Maurice Green likes to brawl as well. So, I mean, Green should absolutely clean John Vellante out of there. Like, he should land big, and Vellante should cower back, throw wildly, chin up in the air, and get put out. But it's John Vellante, and he shows flashes of brilliance. So I'm picking Green, but I am not by no means putting any bit of money, thought of money, change, Bitcoin, gold I have in storage, cents I find on the street, pockets of lint, anything anywhere near a John Vellante fight. He's cost me too much money in the past. Mike, anything for this heavyweight fight of Maurice Green versus Chris Weidman's brother? Not real brother. Wishes he was his brother.
Yeah. John Vollante's frustrating at times, man. I mean, sometimes you think he's got a good striker there who's trying to fight well, and then sometimes just came there to have some hot dogs and pizza after. So I can't quite tell what he's there for at all times, and so there's no way that I would lay down even money on his dog ass, nor would Maurice Green, and that negative 235 is pretty ruthless too. So I definitely recommend staying away from this fight in general, but you know, if you want to get crazy, dude, I'd go with the Maurice Green by TKO or something, but I wouldn't even touch this fight.
Seriously, like I know I don't need to bring it up, but it was way before the show and everything like that. I had a bet on John Vellante versus Tom Lawler. They were fighting at light heavyweight, so Lawler was going up. I had him parlayed. He was minus 200 or so, minus 220. I had him parlayed with TJ Dillashaw in in Dillashaw versus Barao 2 when he was only minus 200 favorite and ended up like setting a high record score of combination striking on Barao's face. But Vellante got laid out by Tom Lawler. By Tom Lawler, man. Tom Lawler doesn't have power. So I don't know. It just brings up flashbacks, and I just can't have any money tied up anywhere near him on either side because he's that type of dude. Next up, Brandon Allen is minus 300. Man, that is steep. Sorry, he was a guy that I was looking to bet on this fight card, but then now he's this steep against Kyle Daukaus. I'm gonna go with that way. Mike, you break down this fight first. Where are you with Brandon Allen, the huge minus 300 favorite, versus Kyle Daukaus?
Oh, man, this is a little confusing for me. Kyle Daukaus has some really, really good jiu-jitsu, and most of his fights he's won by some impressive ones, a couple Darces, and he's one of the highest ranked fighters in the country right now. It's number 6 in the United States, number 1 in New Jersey, number 1 Northeast, or number 2 U.S. Northeast, and number 1 Pennsylvania. I like what I see in the sense of his submission game. Brandon Allen, I don't know if he's going to be worried about that. So I think Brandon Allen is going to be able to roll here. But I definitely would not bet this fight. And if you would, it would be an underdog shot on a submission by the jiu-jitsu stud.
I tend to side with Allen here. Obviously, he's way too big of a favorite, but that's where my pick would be. I really, really like, obviously last time out, him beating Tom Breeze isn't saying much because we've talked some real smack about Tom Breeze and his anxiety attacks going into fights and everything like that. But I think his second round rear naked choke over Kevin Holland is really, really impressive. That's more what I hold him on, and kind of the Tom Breeze fight kept me at that level, not up or down at all. But he obviously needs a little bit more seasoning, but I'm really looking forward to this kid going forward. He's only 24, has decent reach for the size, like he's young, fighting at middleweight, like he's definitely got some chance to be something big in the division. So I'll pick him, but obviously no bet minus 300 is crazy steep. Next up, we're going to the co-main event. Yes, we are already there. Mickey Gall. Yes, Mickey Gall is back. He is plus 255 versus Mike Perry, who's minus 310. Mike Perry should roll here. He should absolutely roll here. He is strong enough to stay on his feet. He has more power in his hands. He does like to brawl, but if he's a little bit smart with it and doesn't just like dive into a choke, he should clean house here. Obviously, it's a little bit worrisome that his only corner for this fight is his girlfriend. And for all of those of you who thought this was a joke, that's real. They have posted photos of her official credentials, and she is going to be in his corner. So that's very worrisome in general, especially if it goes out of the first round. And honestly, Mickey Gall is tough enough to go into the second round. And after one round goes, I don't necessarily think Perry's going to have much of a plan. So, skill-wise, he's still the much better fighter. But I don't know. I think this one's hard for me because I do absolutely think Mike Perry should annihilate Mickey Gall. Unless Mickey Gall has made tremendous strides recently, which is possible. I know he's continually training. He trains with Jim Miller, who just won, among other people in the New Jersey area. There's decent people that he's training with out there, but man, I don't know. I don't know. I got a weird feeling about this fight, just everything in regards to Mike Perry. So I guess if you're feeling the dog, you can go with it. Right now, let's see if it's changed at all. As of last time I checked, it's plus 255. Let's see if it's still that. He is, still plus 255, and that's probably only going to climb. But everything about Mike Perry has me nervous to bet Mike Perry here. So I don't know, unless you're feeling the dog. But I guess that's my odd breakdown for this fight. Mike, how do you feel about this unique co-main event? There was going to be a different co-main event, but it was going to be Ladd versus McMahon, but Ladd injury got that away and bumped this one up. So apparently Mickey Gall is co-main event worthy. So thoughts on this co-main event fight, Mike?
Yeah, I think that Mike Perry is absolutely dominant in every way, standing on the feet. I don't think he's going to be worried about the submission threat. He's fought off a few pretty decent grapplers, better grapplers than Mickey Gall, in my opinion. I think that Mike Perry, any day of the week in the streets, in the alley, anywhere would punish Mickey Gall. So I'm gonna go with TKO KO by Mike Perry, and I think there'll be a first, second round.
Just quick getting you the numbers for that. If that is your lean, Mike Perry TKO is minus 140. Perry inside the distance is minus 160. So if you want that little bit of safety, although
that's gross.
Perry going for submission is very unlikely. So if you really like Perry and you think he's gonna get the finish, minus 140 is obviously way better than minus 310.
Once it has those type of numbers, it's almost troll, and I would go with the decision by Mike Perry now.
There you go. Perry by decision is plus 300, so completely flipping his line.
That's something that, because it's now a finish seems fishy, so maybe the unanimous.
That would be funny. The main event is one hell of a fight. It is Dustin Poirier, minus 220 currently, versus Dan Hooker, plus 180. This is an amazing fight. This is a great fight. I'm so happy that Poirier is fighting again. He's had about a 9-month layoff since losing the unifying belt. Well, he technically lost his interim belt, but he lost it to the current champion, so he didn't gain the interim. Either way, he lost his belt to Khabib Nurmagomedov 9 months ago, last September. And now he's fighting against Dan Hooker, who was surging for a long time, especially once bumping up to lightweight. His current great claim to fame is he has a first-round finish over Gilbert Burns, who is getting a title shot at welterweight. But, I mean, Hooker does have some pretty staunch losses. I mean, I know, like, he lost decision to Jason Knight, lost decision to Yair Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez is good, but has decision loss to Maximo Blanco. I know these are all at featherweight. Okay, so we'll bump up to lightweight. He has a loss to Edson Barboza. Now, I love Edson Barboza. I think he's phenomenal. He took such a beating in that fight, like tremendous, and then went down from a body punch in the third round and was just utterly spent. He had a little bit of reprieve because his next fight, he was going against James Vick, who leaves his chin up in the air, and he was able to get him out in the first round. That's awesome. He beat Iaquinta in a close decision on the Whitaker Adesanya card, so it was in his backyard, basically. And then a split where we actually bet him against Felder. I thought he was going to destroy Felder. I thought he was so much better than him. He was going to put hands on him. I thought it was going to be clear. It was squeaky close that a lot of people scored it for Felder. I mean, don't get me wrong, we got the win on Hooker. I believe it was minus 150 when we had that bet. So we got the win. But, man, it was close. I just think Dustin Poirier is going to be able to outstrike him. He's a little bit craftier than him. I know everyone's going to say city kickboxing striking, which I agree for Adesanya, but I mean, I think Poirier is a better striker than Hooker. I just do. I think he carries more power, and later, I think he is a more devastating submission threat. So, Mike, I will give you the breakdown of this fight before I spoil our bet, and then you can by all means give out our bet for this main event. Yes, we are betting a main event because we've been waiting for a really, really damn good one, and here it is.
Yeah, man. We're huge Dustin Diamond Poirier fans. I just respect the guy so much. He's just improved so much over the years. His striking is absolutely amazing, and his hidden talent is how good his jiu-jitsu is. And Dan Hooker's jiu-jitsu is not even close to the same level as Dustin Diamond Poirier. Dustin Diamond Poirier's jiu-jitsu is seriously so far above Dan Hooker. If we get the chance to see it, you're going to see it very easily this weekend. I just fully believe that Dustin Poirier has the pressure. He has the volume. He's going to throw shots to the body, knowing that Hooker has a weak body similar to Cowboy's Achilles heel on the body. There's no absolute way that Hooker stays standing through all five. He's falling sometime between the third and the fourth, and it's going to be something like that. So we're definitely throwing down the money on Dustin the Diamond Poirier. We got him at negative 210, so we're throwing down the or 2.1 units on him to make 1 unit. I believe in him 100%. I would almost slam my whole house on him. My firstborn. Don't take me too serious, but literally that's how confident I am on this dude. But Dustin Diamond Poirier is going to do his thing this weekend and go have himself some chicken and Louisiana hot sauce.
Now, even though we just said it, quick review of our 2 bets for this fight card. We have 1 unit on Kama Worthy at plus 225 to win you 2.25 units. We also have Dustin, the Diamond Poirier, at minus 210 to win 1 unit, so that's 2.1 units to win you 1 unit at the minus 210. Like Mike said, those are our 2 bets as a quick review. Well, we will be back next week to review this fight card as well as possibly some special stuff coming your guys' way. But don't forget to subscribe to us on your platform of choice. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Casts, an RSS feed. Yes, we are on YouTube. We have the full-length show. We have smaller breakdowns. We have tidbits. We have everything you could possibly want from the show, plus more. Like, comment, and share to spread the word. And with that, let's roll.